Hi, everyone. My name is Emily Heath, and I will be discussing the functional analysis for discussion board 9. So what is a functional analysis, or FA? The functional analysis is a technique used in therapeutic settings to analyze and test alternative potential functions of problem behavior. So antecedents and consequences representing those in the person's natural environment are arranged so that their separate effects on problem behavior can be observed and measured. This is the only functional behavior assessment method that allows practitioners to confirm hypotheses regarding functional relations between problem behavior and environmental events. The 4 functions of behavior, as categorized by behavior analysts, are attention, escape, sensory, and access to tangibles. When assessing why a client is engaging in a problem behavior, evidence suggests that the reason will fall into one of these 4 categories. So when conducting a functional analysis, the behavior analyst will test the frequency of the behavior occurring under each function in contrived conditions. Prior to conducting an FA, we will want to begin conducting a functional behavior assessment. So a functional behavior assessment is used to identify problem behaviors of a client and should be completed before embarking on a functional analysis. Before getting to the step of actually conducting a functional analysis, the behavior analyst will want to determine the severity of the problem behavior and define it in observable and measurable terms. Data will be collected on the hypothesized function using both direct and indirect methods. Narrative and continuous ABC data will be recorded to gather information on common antecedents, topography of the problem behavior, and common consequences following the behavior's presentation. Scatterplot data will also be taken to guide the determination of where the behavior occurs at the highest frequency. And using the collected data, the operational definition can be further defined and specified so that other observers are able to identify its occurrence or non-occurrence. All collected data from both direct and indirect methods will be summarized into data triangulation and problem behavior pathway charts. So this helps the behavior analyst identify common variables from the data and form a hypothesis about the true function. So once these steps have been completed, the hypothesis can be tested using a functional analysis. So after the hypothesis is developed, the behavior analyst can move forward to the development of the functional analysis. The test conditions will be developed for each of the proposed conditions. So all components of each test condition must be planned prior to administering the analysis. This includes materials, time limit of each condition or session, involved analysts, how the conditions will be contrived, and safety measures. These must all be pre-planned. So once approved, data can begin being collected for each condition. Best practice would have 2 observers collecting data to ensure high inter-observer agreement. And once there is necessary and sufficient data collected, the analyst will graph what was recorded in order to interpret the function and identify if their hypothesis was correct. There is no standard FA procedure. There are guidelines that should be followed, but not one set in stone way to test a hypothesized function. So each FA should be individualized to the client and flexible to change should it be necessary. Each condition should also be repeated to determine which condition the problem behavior occurs in the most. Each condition must have a reinforcement contingency and an antecedent condition. The antecedent condition must be contrived by the behavior analyst to ensure there are the least amount of potential confounding variables present. So conditions must all be presented at one time each in a random sequence. The client will not be made verbally aware of the contingency, and it's also too important to note that the functional analysis may produce potentially harmful behavior to the client or observers, so it's imperative to set a time limit on the conditions. You don't want to overwork the client. The standard conditions of an FA are derived from the 4 functions, so they can be altered or deviated from these depending on the nature of the hypothesis. Ideally, the control or play condition should not produce the problem behavior, or it should be very infrequent. And the test conditions, attention, escape, alone, and tangible, will be tested against each other to determine the function. In the control condition, to contrive the antecedent condition, the client will have access to all contingencies of the test conditions. They will be given access to all preferred toys, materials, activities, consistent positive attention from the instructor, and no demands will be placed on them. So while the problem behavior is least likely to occur in this situation, if it does, it will be ignored or redirected as neutrally as possible. During the attention condition, all attention from the instructor is withheld from the client. This includes eye contact, play interaction, speaking to them, body orientation. If the problem behavior does present, the instructor will immediately provide positive attention. So either through mild reprimands or soothing statements, attention will be given. In the escape condition, demands are continuously placed on the client without breaks or reinforcement. If the problem behavior occurs, the instructor will immediately remove the task or demand and stop prompting completion of the task. In the alone condition, there will be low levels of environmental stimulation around the client. So task materials, preferred play or sensory materials, and the instructor are all removed from the client's environment. If the problem behavior occurs, it will be ignored depending on its potential for harm or neutrally redirected. To begin the tangible condition, the client will have access to preferred items for a set amount of time. And after the time elapses, the instructor will remove the preferred tangible and continue denied access to it. If the problem behavior presents, the client will immediately be given access to that same preferred item or tangible. After the behavior analyst compiles the FA data into a graph, they are able to interpret the function. So high rates in each condition suggest a different maintaining variable. So high rates in the attention condition, behavior is being maintained by social positive reinforcement. So either somebody making eye contact with them, laughing with them, or scolding them after they present the behavior. High rates in the escape condition, the problem behavior is maintained by negative reinforcement. So for example, a student biting an instructor when demands are placed and the instructor stopping the demand after getting bit, that's providing negative reinforcement. If there are high rates in the alone condition, problem behavior is maintained by automatic or sensory reinforcement. So for example, a client who continuously bites their nails during this condition, we would say that's maintained by automatic reinforcement. If there are high rates in the tangible condition, the problem behavior is being maintained by access to positive reinforcement. So if a child tantrums near a certain counter in the kitchen, near an unreachable cookie jar, when the cookie jar is brought down to their level and they have access to the cookies, the tantrums would no longer occur. So as previously mentioned, the functional analysis is the only FBA method that can demonstrate a clear link for the function of the behavior and its environment. So it's the only method that will confirm or deny a hypothesis. It's the gold standard of scientific evidence by which other assessment alternatives are evaluated. So since they are able to determine maintaining variables of problem behavior, they have aided behavior analysts in developing effective reinforcement-based treatments. So this is great to deviate from reliance on punishment procedures. Thank you for listening to my presentation. Have a great day.